harvest or grow it. From the Stash Podcast.
And a huge shout out to AC Infinity. AC Infinity's got a brand new bowl trimmer, and you're going to want to get your hands on this. I harvested an entire pound in just a couple hours. I didn't have a sore back. It was easy on my feet, and boy, was it fast. Don't hesitate. Go to acinfinity.com, use promo code THESTASH15, save a few dollars off at checkout, and thank them for being a sponsor of today's video. Hey, what's up, guys?
What up?
Welcome back.
Welcome back.
Another week.
I was gonna say we had a little any time off. It always feels like I'm like, man, I haven't seen these guys in forever. We went from like 3-4 days a week, constantly seeing each other, to then like every other, or then when we miss it, I'm like, are we good still? Everything?
Well, when we're doing weekly trips to Vegas, it's almost like we get to know each other a little,
Yeah, the gaps are bigger than the gap between my teeth. And I don't enjoy.
I don't know about that.
What are you in the comment section now? You one of those guys?
Call me Gary. Sorry. Call me Gary. So as we tick in here, like I imagine by the time you guys are watching this, the summer has arrived. And if you guys know, I actually started my very first outdoor grow this year. And so far, so good. But it's kind of brought up a conversation that I've never had before, because growing outdoors is something that I've just never dabbled in. I've always been afraid to. You always hear, oh, the bugs, the deer are going to eat your herb, or the or people are going to come and help themselves with that 5-finger discount. And so I kind of bought into it. But this year I thought, you know what? I have a good friend of mine. He's got a little bit of space on his acreage. He kind of harvested out a little area within the woods. And we're going to give it a shot. And I'm really excited about it. So I think today a good conversation would be growing outdoors. Have you guys
early beginner style like this? I'm proud of you, because I remember a year, maybe 2 years ago, you said you wouldn't even be going to a tent, let alone growing outside. I feel like you even said, you're like, maybe one day. Like one day was a year later.
You're right.
So it's awesome, man.
Yeah, you're quick to remind me of that too. Yeah, you say that with the tent. You said you weren't even going to grow in a tent.
You said.
Yeah, you're right. I'm a hypocrite.
But it's good to evolve and try different things. And like, I think you're going to probably have a similar experience in myself, and realizing that awesome, great, cool, it's doable. But I like my indoors better, but it's just preference. A lot of people will say otherwise. I've got a few different acquaintances, we'll say, who are starting outdoor for the first time ever. And they've luckily gone into it way better than I have, because they're so much more knowledgeable from growing inside for 2 years, 3 years already. So you're really seeing a difference in their start versus myself, who was just like dirt. Soil's dirt, pot, and we're good. It's like,
And you're lucky to be able to grow outdoors. I mentioned this on podcast episodes before, but I'm actually not even allowed to grow outdoors here. Not vegetables, sure, fruits, vegetables, whatever, but that plant we all know and love, not allowed to grow it outdoors here.
Nobody?
Now, even if nobody, no, not even if you're a medical patient like I am. Now, even I know some states, they mention that you can grow it outdoors, but it's got to be completely hidden from all sights. Now, where I live, the houses are like on top of each other, basically, and like you can see into everybody's backyard. So even if I was allowed, I wouldn't have that privacy to be able to do it. But yeah, you're lucky, man. Back when I was I lived in Pennsylvania for a little while, I lived in Massachusetts for a while. I did do outdoor grows, but it's been many, many years since I've done an outdoor grow. So it's a whole different set of challenges there.
You're absolutely right. And that's actually probably one of the biggest comments, or one of the most obvious comments in the comment section, is outdoors in Canada sucks, quote unquote. And, I understand where they're coming from, because people have this, conception, and I don't help, but people have this conception that it's just cold in Canada all year round. But it really isn't. When it gets cold, it's cold. It's cold. But we do have a spring, summer, fall, and winter. It's just sometimes that winter can come a little bit early, sometimes late October, and that's typically when you're preparing to harvest when it comes to outdoor. And so it's not unusual to see pictures of outdoor product with frost or snow on it here in Manitoba, but it can be done. It really can be. So I'm not saying I can do it. I'm just saying it can be done.
Someone can.
Somebody can. Yeah.
Well, in your case, like I said, you're going into this as a experienced grower. Maybe not experienced outdoor grower, but you get the concept of what plants need:
Mhm.
light, plant stress, predators, issues like that. And I'm assuming, looking at what you have, you at least started a little bit inside. Yeah, I mean they look like beanlings, we'll call them, but you did start them underneath some sort of artificial lighting, correct?
You're absolutely right. Yeah, and I wish they had gotten a bit bigger. My intent was to just keep them in a solo cup and then move them outside. But I think that's I've already taken a step in the wrong direction, because I think I should have actually transplanted them once or upsized them just so that they could have had a bigger root zone to fill out. That didn't make sense, but I'm going to run with it. And because they were so restricted, they stayed really small. So it's kind of a trade-off. I wish I'd transplanted them so they were a little bit larger, because I want them to be strong. I want them to be able to take on the wind, the sun, just the outdoor environment, because although they started inside, it is much different being outside than it is inside. And that's why I started to acclimate them, to get them prepared.
Well, I think hardening them off too, like a lot of people will do that with clones, and it'd be the same taking it to the outdoor environment. If you're basically over parenting, or you're being too meticulous with a cultivar that you're bringing outside, it's going to be a shock to it once it gets into that environment. My first run, it was just clones from inside HID, or it was a CFL I used initially, actually. So throwback. And then I gave it, the love and nurturing that it needed, but almost too much. I got it in really, really healthy, good condition. And then I brought it outside. And that first week was such a stressful period of transitioning through an uncontrolled environment. So I think hardening off a cultivar and having one that's known for not being as delicate, we'll say, would be good. Oh, what am I looking at right there? Is that a stash koozie cup?
Yeah, it's a From the Stash koozie cup. Yeah.
What?
I took a sticker off of my. Because I'm growing outside, I find myself working outside quite often. So I've given myself a great way to get out there and keep hydrated at the same time.
Nice. Maybe you can find that over at stashmerch.com eventually. I'm not sure. We'll see.
I think you could. Yeah, you could.
Dashmerch.com. You at least find the stickers over there.
You'll
right?
find the
Make your
sticker
own
to slap
koozie.
to slap it on
I want a
anything. Oh, you
koozie.
might not be able to see it based on the
We're
camera.
getting
but
koozies.
I got
damn it.
stickers everywhere, man. We're getting koozies next.
I put stickers at almost every gas station I go to. I put a Franklin Fields Ben Frankie one and a From the Stash one, and I go back and constantly, you can see someone try to take it off. But those are damn good stickers.
They're good. They ain't coming off. No, these ain't coming off. I know. They're all over Vegas too.
Gas station clerk. But what I was saying though, with the
Hardening them
cultivars, not only do you want to have them hardened off, but you want to make sure you're not putting one out there that's going to take 14 weeks. 12, 13
no
weeks,
Maui. There's no Maui Wowie in my selection.
Yeah.
This season, because I just don't have that kind of time frame. If I'm getting snow in late October, I need to take into consideration that they can't go that long, and that's where some people have mentioned, an auto flower might be a recommended direction, because then it's going to switch a little bit sooner. So you hope, I guess, right? I guess I wouldn't know. But yeah, it's something to take into consideration as well, the length of flowering time.
Yeah, and that kind of brings me into reminds me of a really good point, which is the different latitudes. Depending on what you're growing in, you're going to have different day lengths. And one thing I learned, it kind of blew my mind a little bit, over at Utah State University. Dr. Allison Justice did a presentation through the cultivation certificate program that I went through. And she was talking about like the different day lengths in the different areas. And so some areas, when you're going outdoors, you can have a much shorter period of time that you're able to be in the vegetation stage, right? You can have enough day length to be in that stage. So kind of knowing your area, when that day length is good for veg, is super important, and it varies. And unfortunately, another thing is with the talking about different cultivar characteristics, that kind of relates to it as well, because you could grow something very well in one latitude, then you bring it to another latitude and it grows terribly. So it's like genetics. Oh my God, it's like it's even more important than growing indoors, I feel like.
You're 100% right. And I think this is why we grow indoors, right? So that I don't need to take this into consideration. I don't have a climate, or I don't have an outdoor environment. I don't have so many variables, I guess, excuse me, is the words I'm looking for. But not only are you looking for a cultivar that has an appropriate flowering time, you're not only are you looking for a cultivar that has the ability to sustain longer or shorter time frames in day, you're looking for one that's going to be resistant to bugs. That's a big thing, because that's, in my opinion, that's one of the biggest reasons I have never grown outside before. I am a bug phobe. Like I can't stand having any kind of bugs, even though there are beneficial bugs. But when you're growing outdoors, you've got animals you got to face, deer. You've got to worry about birds. You've got to worry about pests, because now you're open to everything, including humans. They could be even your worst pest. So it's like you are going to want to find a genetic. Now, I don't know you're going to find a genetic that wards off humans, but you do want something that's going to be a little hardier towards pests, infestation, disease. And these are all things that, as an indoor grower, I really honestly don't think about. I don't care about whatever bugs are outside. That's just not something when we think about. I don't think about deer wandering and nibbling off the tops of my plants. These are just
kids stealing your stuff. Like,
Or
these thoughts are never a thing. Outdoor is I applaud those who do it for a long time, because there's a lot more mental stress to it, even though people feel like it's not. It's all nature, natural. Let it go and do its thing. Well, there's also natural predators, and there's people, and there's weather, and then there's so many variables that come into play. I'm not a fan of growing outside because of that, personally. Can't control it. I don't like it.
Yeah. So do you have like a IPM regimen that you've been doing, or that you have in mind for when you're doing this first outdoor grow that you're going to do, P?
Yeah, it's funny because I did consider doing, I have a regular, I'm essentially going to take what I know about indoors and I'm going to apply it outdoors. So the only IPM I am going to apply is the one that I am aware of. I use rosemary, neem, and peppermint oil, and I apply all three typically once a month, and not all three. I do one application of either, for example, neem oil this month, one spray all over the plants, tops and bottoms, including the soil, and then in a month later, I'll use peppermint oil, same application, and then a month later, because I don't have a problem right now, so I'm not in any kind of reaction mode, but I'm going to take that exact same application, or that same management system, if you will, and I'm going to apply it to the plants outside. So unless I have a problem, I'm just going to apply one of those every month, one a month, and then there's only 3 months,
Well, and within that 3 month time, I don't know. I guess you got a different place, but if you're looking at your DLI or your daily light integral, do you have? I guess this is me just being like everyone else, like you said in the beginning. Canada's always cold. It's always. Do you have enough sunlight that's going to be able to maintain that amount of time that you don't have to add supplemental lighting?
Like I said, one of the biggest misconceptions about this location of the planet is that it's cold and dark, uncomfortable. The sun rises at 6 o'clock in the morning here and sets at about 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. So that's about how much sunlight we get.
Damn.
It is it's late. Well, okay, it sets closer to 9:30, but you know what I mean? The sun is still very bright around those times. Maybe it's even closer to 10 o'clock it sets. I'd be curious, actually. I could look at it. But anyways, it's late. It's late. Yeah, get to science. But it is late. We got a full set of sun, and that sun is high, and it is hot. It's not unusual to get to very high 80s to low to mid 90s average. And we have seen 100 degrees around here. That's not unusual either. So,
no shit.
Yeah. Hot.
Over there in Huntsville, USA.
No, it gets hot. It gets hot and it gets cold. That's the swing.
I'm looking at a chart here. I know I can't share it and show it on the screen, but it's showing kind of what I mentioned with the Dr. Allison Justice, how she's talking about just when to plant and when the flower initiation period would be. I'm looking at Lansing, Michigan, which isn't too far away from you.
That's where I work.
I know you, Rob, but P, you're not too far away from there as well. It's saying plant May 20th. That's when you want to kind of plant or have them in ground, and then flower initiation is going to become August 12th, around that time. So pretty long veg period there, or decent veg period you got there. Several months, and then it's going to transition from flower. And then it actually goes into, I mean, you got to worry about after that harvesting before frost, right? That's another thing that you got to kind of be concerned about, right? Because you kind of ruin your crop if the weather gets too bad. The plants could get kind of screwed in a couple of different ways, not only just kind of having snow on them or frost, but the mold, right? The mold that can happen, bud rot and all that stuff, right?
Yeah. No, you're
Do you
absolutely
deal
right.
with a lot of humidity fluctuation in your neck of the woods?
Can. Yep.
Yeah.
Can.
So
Yep.
that's where it's like, again, cultivar is so important. You go out there with these, shout out Mendo boys. They got these monster plants, huge buds, but not every cultivar is going to be able to perform in our regions, like these northern regions, because of that fluctuation. You get these fat, massive buds. It's almost more detrimental. I'd rather have a little bit more sparse, but a lot of them, so I don't have to worry about bud rot, things like that.
Yeah. And I've got some big buds coming. I know it based on the genetics that I've got growing on. When you talk about how close I am to Lansing, although we are relatively close, Michigan is still quite south from me. Even just Michigan. I'm not even quite sure where Lansing is. So on May 20th, we actually had frost, not just the week prior to that. So the rule of thumb around here is June 1st for plant. Okay. So it sounds like it's about a week and a half difference. And that's from the old timers. It's some seasons you can get in a little bit earlier, but typically it's June 1st rule of thumb. We don't even plant flowers outside until that, unless you're prepared to drape blankets over them and kind of prepare them, but we are not. We don't do, like, I don't want to do that, take that extra attention. So June 1st, I go buy all my flowers for outside, and that's exactly the day that we're going to plant. We're recording this, I think it's actually June 1st today. I'm going at 4:00 to get them planted in. So by the time this releases in the comment section, I'm going to be reading, ask me how it is, and I'll let you know. So yeah, there's definitely going to be, some hurdles, some challenges, but I'm ready for it. You ever attempt to grow outside, Rob? Ever?
Oh yeah, I've talked about it a couple times, but they've all been bad because I've gotten them stolen other than once. When I was
I
doing
remember
it was,
from your your buddy took them, but didn't take them, right?
More
I remember.
buddy
Yeah.
took them.
Yeah.
He wasn't there, but he was a part of it. But my biggest issue with the outdoor time is I wasn't an experienced grower at the time. You know what I'm saying? Is I didn't know as much about the plant. And that's where I struggled. I couldn't see the signs of damage that really are different outside versus inside. 9 times out of 10, they will be. But what I noticed is it was so cultivar specific when I had, and this was all the time when it was just bag beans. You know what I'm saying? I didn't have any real good genetics. But I had a couple times where I cloned stuff and I maintained it inside, and I just had this big old plant that I never had bud from ever. Like literally never got it because someone stole the plant once I put it outside. But it was a factor of knowing that if I can't finish it within this time period and I can't bring it in for increasing my, let's say my flowering time or finishing time, the smoke was so just trash to me that I didn't even want to do it. Like I've had a lot of times where buddies were like, yeah, I'm pulling my plants down. I'm like, that needs 3 more weeks, bud. That thing's not even close to being done. And it's this cucumber crap that doesn't affect you. That's where the greenhouse setup is really where it's at. If you're somebody who's trying to grow outside, even if you get a cheap makeshift one or one from Amazon, growing outside needs some control, and if you're in California and you're in an area, or in BC, let's say, a place that you can do very well naturally, all power to you. But other places where your climate or your environment or your region isn't playing towards growing that cultivar, well, you're going to have to do something like the greenhouse. And The only time I had a successful run, we had a little makeshift greenhouse and it crushed it. It just wasn't smoke I liked. It was the first time I ran into straight purple bud, but it was that traditional purple taste of berryish. I was just like, I don't like this. I really started to understand the difference between organic and synthetic early on with that, though, because I thought I could just use Miracle-Gro soil and feed it with some Dynagrow nutrients, and murdered the plants. Only a couple survived. Murdered. The next season, it was a full organic, and it was a local. When I lived out in Nunica in Michigan, a local guy who just made like a super soil essentially on his own. It was this Michigan. He ended up getting it as an actual brand. I think it's like Michigan something made. I can't remember it, man. People in Michigan might remember it. He had it in the grocery stores for a while. It was a blue and gold bag. Super expensive, but it was just like with Build a Soil 3.0. It's kind of just water it. And then when you want to reuse it, just re-amend it. It was really nice, but it was so hard to get it and it was expensive that I only ended up doing one container, one pot with it. But it was the best grow I had outside. It was beautiful. Everything was nice, but the season changed on me too quick. Couldn't finish the plant off. Like it just was just on the cusp of being finished, but I still tasted that chlorophyll early, needed more time, didn't get that bake from it. It yielded decent, but without having the control, I wouldn't have had that plant at all. No question.
If you're growing in a greenhouse outdoors, like that you're cheating. That's next level.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's like that is optimization. IMO. You know what I mean? In my opinion, because it's like you are utilizing the best light source the planet has to offer, right? And it's the sun, and you are in a space that's going to be free from the environment. Maybe most bugs, definitely wind. In cold temperatures at the wrong times. Greenhouse is the way to go, because there's tons of places out there that are growing good top shelf quality stuff in a greenhouse, and you would never know the difference. Like in my opinion,
the greenhouse, you can do light deprivation,
right?
You can in an open area. So essentially, for those listening or watching who don't know what that is, essentially depriving the plants from the light, switching your cycle into flower earlier. If you got long veg time, like we just talked about, where you're not flipping until August, we'll start switching, darkening your space and cutting off that light where you're flipping into flower essentially earlier. You're controlling that. And you see a lot of people, I know people here in Michigan, they only grow outside. They veg all year. They have these straight up Mendo Boy sized plants, massive, huge. And they finish them September-ish. They have their products out before the rest of the outdoor market is. It's Croptober or October is when they're dry, cured, and ready to go. Versus a lot of people, the traditional nomad grower will say they're going only based on the environment and the nature. They're not controlling every aspect. So when you have the greenhouse, you can really dial it in. You can get quality of smoke that you would think is very similar to indoor, because essentially you're controlling everything. You're cleaning your environment. You're maintaining your proper lighting. You could even add supplemental lighting in there, utilizing things like solar or wind energy, to help supplement that. So your cost still is offset, but then you're still harvesting and maintaining almost your indoor style grow outside. Now, covering a whole big space isn't going to be easy, but something as simple as tarps could even help.
Sure.
I've seen it myself.
The space that I'm going to be growing in is going to have 8 plants. 7, one of them didn't sprout, and it's going to be in about a 25 by 12 to 14 foot, you know what I mean? So you could easily just put a roof over it with a few sides. It's it's deprivation, it's not necessarily light ceiling, but it would definitely have an impact. One thing that I just want to mention too before we finish too is that I want it to be understood too that you need to kind of know what's going on in the land next to you as well, because where I am going to be slightly concerned that the farmer is going to be maybe using pesticides or something that is going to be not favorable to my product in the end, and I need to be careful with that, because I don't want that to contaminate my stuff. So if you're in farmland or in places where they do aerial spraying, I know that's quite common around here. Airplanes that fly around and spray from the air. Just make sure that you're kind of aware of what's going on in your environment, because heaven forbid your plants come in contact with something that is meant for corn or something, pests.
It would suck, especially get flowering. It's like you could just get covered with the crap that's coming from your neighbors there. That'd be rough.
Yeah, and I'm in prime agriculture country. Like you send a drone 200 feet up, like you see nothing but farmland in every direction. So, yeah, something to take into consideration.
Now you talked about fencing before, to particularly deer, as you're trying to not have your plants, right?
Yeah.
Can you talk to us about fencing? Because I heard deers can jump like 6 feet or something like that. They can jump
Hard
crazy amounts. So like you need to have a high fence, right? What's your plan there?
Honestly, this is by the seam of my pants. My buddy Grew, it's about a 4 to 5 foot metal fence. It's going to go all the way around. I think in fairness, it's going to keep away the majority of things. You know what? A determined animal is going to blast through that fence. I don't care how big it is. A determined human is going to get through there. No matter how big it is. I think too, it's like, I'm hoping that there's a lot of food around. My buddy does hunt, so it's not unusual for him to have something hanging around. So hopefully there's just more places that are just more exciting to the deer than my plant, But
Well,
yeah,
if you get
what
enough human sense around there, if there's a hunting area, the deer will be smart enough to stay out of there.
And I'm a man who pees in every corner.
Pee on everything.
I mark my territory, Christopher.
When people always said to piss in your plants, I always thought it was a misconstrued thing of when us old, guerrilla growers were like, piss are near your plants to keep predator, you're the predator. And then all of a sudden people just changed it to in, and I was like,
they got misunderstood over time, eh?
But no, I found out that people are weird, over time, and that's more what it is. But it's different when you're thinking about pests and predators and things like that, because it's just like normal crops. You're going to want to keep them there. My biggest concern is always, and maybe nowadays it's not as big of a concern, but as young dumbass kids during Croptober going hunting on their own, and they're hunting for your plants. They're not hunting for deer. Well, and that's always the toughest one, because they don't care if you've pissed anywhere.
No, but I can't insinuate anything, but you're coming onto private land in Canadian ranch country.
That's all I was gonna say.
Yeah,
do the math.
Good luck, but like, this is the prime example. Number one, I think the number one rule to growing out like this is that you need to keep your mouth shut. Don't tell the internet, okay? Like I have, okay? No, but I in all honesty, it's like you don't tell your coworkers, don't tell your friends. It's just there's no reason for it. You don't need to tell them until you're handing them a nice big jar of something wonderful, okay? And say, this is how the season was this year. I would like you to have a little something in toast of my success. And here's to our friendship, So that I think is a very important thing to take into consideration. I want it to be known that I am determined to give this 100% of my attention, and I want this to turn out to be the best it can be. And we shall see. We shall see. I'm going to put as many feet forward as I can to try to make it happen. From training to feeding to IPM to just the attention that these plants need to survive. And we make it sound like it can be difficult and stressful. And although it can, if you prepare properly, you can prevent a poor performance, if you will, if I can continue that out. But that's outdoor growing, in my opinion.
Yeah, we might have to do a part 2 of this where we continue the conversation here, because we didn't really touch on nutrition in detail. We didn't really touch on training that can be done. Like, those are probably whole episodes in itself.
You're absolutely right. Because I will not be. I won't be training these the same way. So. Yeah, no, it's a great conversation. Hey, that's what a podcast does, man. We just talk and we have a great time. And if you enjoy these episodes, don't forget to hit that like button. Don't forget, we record these every single week live on twitch.tv/pigeon. No, from the stash. And
from the stash.
Yeah, I'm Pigeons from the stash. You can come participate in the chat and help give us some tidbits and little hints as we go through the conversation. But don't forget, too, you can also check out stashmerch.com. Check out all the latest merch that we have here on From the Stash. But I think that's everything, boys.
Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah.
That's it.
Let's smoke about it.
Let's smoke about it. Twitch, don't go anywhere. YouTube, we're out of here. I'm Pigeons. That's Mr. Grow It. That's Rob from CLtv. And a huge thanks to Wink behind the scenes. We're out of here.
Peace.
Peace.